Hey everyone, thanks for joining me again on my YouTube channel. This is Workshop Quick Takes. Today we're back to working on the 2000 Jeep Cherokee XJ, and our goal by the end of today is an upgrade. We are going to add a transmission cooler in front of the radiator and AC condenser, and we are going to upgrade the fan clutch to a heavy-duty ZJ fan clutch. We're going to take that one further, however. We're not just going to do the ZJ upgrade that a lot of people do. We're going to do the severe duty ZJ upgrade, which was one more above, and it's like this big, and the fan shroud doesn't fit around it, so we're going to have to do some modifications there and show you how that works out. Whole point of having a transmission cooler is we do a lot of low-speed crawling, especially during the summer months when it's hot and the AC is running, and we're usually at high altitudes, so the air is thin. All those factors together mean that things run warm. And while we can't wish the transmission to have a long life because it already has, we do want it to have a longer life if possible. So let's start in Site B and get that transmission cooler put in, and then later on we'll come back here and finish up the job. And unfortunately, while we were at Site B, a microphone cord started to break, and so we lost some audio and had to rely on a backup source. So the quality is a little bit more roomy than we would normally like, but it's all there, and we want to show you how it worked out. This is the cooler we're putting in today. It came from Advanced Auto Parts. But this is just a generic aux cooler. You can buy them at almost any auto parts store or supplier. I've also picked up some fuel injection styled shielded hose clamps. These are a little bit more clean and easy to use. Although, in truth, because we are also going to be using a brass hose barb as part of this project, we don't necessarily need those. The brass hose barb does a great job of biting into the hose, and you can use a conventional hose clamp on this if you want to. That there did come with some hose. However, just in case, I bought an extra length. This thing comes with parts and pieces, including the ties that pull it through the radiator in order to hold it. I'm not thrilled about these, but for now I don't have a better way of holding it, so we will use those. And this here is the cooler. It's not very large, but it'll be a lot better than what we have now for the transmission, which is just the OE one going through the radiator. And we do need to get the hood up, so let's go ahead and pull that now. Now as it happens, we're not going to be removing the OE cooling loop. We're going to do this the way the tow package was done if you ordered that option from the factory. Since this cooler loop is a bit mysterious to many automatic owners, let's summarize how it works and where today's modification fits in the scheme. Here are Colorado's Rocky Mountains, and here is a Jeep that spends time there. Beneath the hood we have a radiator, a 4.0-liter engine, an AW4 transmission, and an NP231 transfer case. The transfer case is self-contained and won't bother us today, so we'll ignore it and focus on the AW4's cooling loop ports. The front is the hot feed, the rear is the cold return. The hot feed is a single long assembly that routes under the front of the engine and enters the radiator oil cooler loop from the bottom. The top exit from the radiator is two pieces, with a coupler near the harmonic balancer pulley. A second piece then completes the return to the transmission rear port. The reason for the coupler is that when the towing package was optioned, Chrysler's OE-type aux cooler had pipe extensions that connected directly to the couple point. We are not using the OE cooler today, but since our aux cooler is operating the same way, we do need to split the line there somehow, and route the radiator discharge to the bottom of the aux cooler, and the top discharge from the aux cooler to the transmission return port. Some owners buy thermostatically controlled aux coolers, bypassing the radiator loop, and then use the radiator loop to cool the power steering fluid instead. But since we're not running the steering pump too hard with just 31-inch tires, an OE-type installation will suffice today. This here is our OE fan clutch from a ZJ Grand Cherokee. This is supposed to bolt on to the exact same fan holes and shaft mount as the OE one. This one here is much thicker, has a lot more heat sinking, and the spring here that controls the valve, I guess apparently the damping is supposed to be a lot harder, so it's going to move more air at all levels and temperatures relative to the one that comes in here stock. I'm not really having any cooling issues. I totally got those resolved mainly by cleaning up the system, flushing, replacing the radiator after that started leaking, and at one point I had an air bubble that caused some boil over, but once I got the system fully purged, everything worked fine. However, it does get to 215 and push the electric fan on when I'm wheeling or on really hot summer days while using the AC. So if I can move some additional air with this on this side, that'll be great, because this is also the side that I'm going to put that cooler on. I'm going to try and do it without removing the full header panel, because if I remove these two bezels and then get the screws that are under here and here for the radiator, for the grill down here, along with the four that mounted up here, it should come out and give me plenty of access into here to be able to install the cooler. This one here is in one of the two that holds in the lights and then also helps hold in the grill over here. One here. And now the grill trim comes out. Okay, once we've done that, we've got plenty of free and clear access into here. And as you can see, there's plenty of space back here for our cooler. And since we didn't pick a particularly large one, we can just slide it in and back. The only other decision to make is whether I want the lines to come out this side, go down through a hole right there, and then have to loop back over the frame rail. Or if I want them to come around here, loop under and maybe go through one of these little holes here, which is dimple dyed. And these dimple dyed holes are a good spot, I think. So if I do it there, that's not bad. Lines don't rub over here. On the other hand, if I turn it around like this, that works too. The access to the hoses is not as good over here. I'm going to have to slide it farther over. Next, I need to get the fan shroud out, and that involves a pair of 8mm bolts located here and here. In place of a long gone and broken hose clamp, I used an insulated conduit strap. Works just as well, cheap and easy. Another easy trick for your fan shroud, which has helped enormously because I broke 2 or 3 of these doing work on here constantly. I shaved just about a 1/4 inch off the lip here. Made sure to round it down in here and then just took a torch to it and kind of melted this edge back so that everything had all the stress taken out of it. Looking down in there, that is the stock fan clutch and that is where it ends. That is the ZJ fan clutch. It's going to protrude a lot farther and I may have to modify the fan shroud further just to get it in there. Okay, we have a video where we actually replaced these transmission cooler lines, but what's interesting for us today is this one. Now this one here has already been repaired with a repair section because it got pulled up into the fan at one point and we had to cut it back. So there's already a brass hose barb in this piece right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this clamp and then cut this back a bit past the clamp so I can get all that off neatly. And then our hose will reattach there. And we will add another brass hose barb and another section of hose that attaches here. And since this came over to about here, we'll probably just bring the hoses down to about there and through. Sliding this in here. That is going to go like that-ish. So that's reasonable. So if that's going to go through, say, like right in here somewhere. This is a bit hackish and I wish there was a better way to do it, but I don't want to spend the money, so these are basically like zip ties, and these are supposed to come here. Just keep pulling. Okay, tight as that goes. Somewhere towards the middle. Okay, I'm happy with that. If I do 3, I've got 1 spare in case one of these breaks in the future. Got the same deal going on right there. So I'll do that twice. Success. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. Okay, last check. Is it vibrating or moving? Not so you'd notice. I think that'll be fine. These tubes are not rubbing against the edge of the condenser, so that's as good as that gets. Okay, executive decision time. The hose that came with the oil cooler is 11/30 seconds, and it's rated for the application. It's got kind of a thick wall on it too. Well, this here is Gates Rubber Company, which is very high quality. 3/8, just a hair larger. Look at the diameter. This is actually a little smaller and it's going to be easier to route. So I'm going to use the Gates that I bought, and I don't know, maybe I'll save this for another project or something, but for now, we're just going to set this aside, and this here should fit perfectly. And one of them is going to come up like this. Before they're going further down that road though, we do need to open a package of these. Okay. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. And then I want to do that, make sure that that's not going to rub against any channels. It is not. Now, one thing we need to think about is which way that goes in and out of there. I don't know that it makes a huge deal. I'm going to need to come around something like this, I think. So I'll give myself plenty of extra and just cut it down in here somewhere. Slide the clamp on in the right direction before applying the hose. Slide the hose down so you don't have to fight it later. Next step is I'm going to put some split loom on these and fish that down through there. And that will protect the hoses from chafing because they have to kind of press up against some other components here, and that can't be helped. So, see why we're doing that? Well, it's got to go down past a couple things there. So that's a good way to protect against chafing. I'll do the same thing to the other side. Finish getting everything routed. I'm going to start with these hose clamps. I'm going to remove this one first. I'm just going to start by cutting that. And this could be messy. I might start dropping fluid. So I am going to get a catch basin down below here. A little bit. There we go. Okay, so this here gets a brass hose barb and another fuel injection clamp. So the upper hose needs to take the feed from the radiator, which it will do like this. There we go. Not thrilled about the line right there. It's a little tight, but I think that'll work. Unfortunately, it's getting a little late for the ZJ fan clutch because I got to get out of here, but I can now test this, get it good and hot, make sure that I've got a good fluid level in the reservoir, and then come back later, and it's pretty easy to do the fan because that all needs to happen from the top side, and I just have to remove the shroud again. Okay, that's the fascia back on. Now we just need to do a couple test runs, make sure nothing leaks and drips. If it does, we might have to tighten some of those clamps. Might have to add a couple ounces of transmission fluid also because there's going to be some extra volume in that pipe, but I think it was slightly overfilled before anyway, so once it gets good and hot, we'll see. If we need some, we have it, and if not, we're good. Okay, new day with the same project. We're going to finish this up. Shouldn't actually take that long, we just plain ran out of time that one evening. These two 8mm bolts need to come out again, and then we remove the fan shroud. After that, there's some kind of English bolt down on the fan clutch here that I think will be removable with a 13. Now the engine actually turns this way, and the advantage of that is it means that these can use normally threaded bolts because when it's turning it will tighten a right-hand thread. Oh, that's not good. Don't want to leave that in there. Magnet on a stick is a tool everyone should have. Here we go. And, yep, there's one, two. Wow. Let's see if we can actually get this thing out of here now. Yeah, well, there it is. Okay, with the fan out, we've also now got a nice clear view of our tabs that are holding in the transmission cooler as well as the plumbing underneath. And I'm noticing here's one more thing to watch out for. That pulley is now completely loose, so with the tension of the bell still on it, notice how it's slipped forward a bit on the bottom. Not a big deal, but we need to make sure that we get all the bolts tensioned to the exact same amount when we put the fan back on. And that'll mean visually inspecting to make sure they all have the same amount of thread coming through. We'll take it indoors, get the fan mounted on the ZJ clutch, and see if we can get this reinstalled back out here, and then that'll be that. Okay, here we are. This is the existing fan clutch with the fan still attached at the moment. Looks like once again, these screws will be coming off with 13s. I don't really have any reason to believe this one's bad. It's still nice and viscous here, as is the new one. Now I'm trying to think of a good way to secure this that doesn't bash up the fan blades, and I'm thinking maybe if I can get this on here somehow and hold it. Now that might work. If I had a large bench vise, that'd work even better, but since I don't, this might do the trick. My big concern here is that these might have a bit of Loctite on them, because I didn't have lock washers on these ones like I did on the others. No, they're just screwed in there. Okay, need to keep this in the same orientation when it goes back on the new one, so there it is. Fan clutch. It's pretty filthy there on the spring, but both of these have the same basic mechanism. There's a viscous fluid inside here, but there's also some channeling or valving that changes how it flows, and that is in response to this bimetallic strip here. Can actually illustrate that in real time. It's mostly for amusement, but what's happened here is that this whole bimetallic strip, as the metal has expanded, the clock spring has started to rotate it in this way. And now this, which was pretty much horizontal when we started, is over here. Not a huge amount of change, but it must be controlling a decent amount of feed through on the valve inside if it's going to have any kind of effect. The one from the ZJ Grand Cherokee is larger in diameter and has a whole lot more heat sinking going on, so it should stay viscous a lot longer than the OE one from the XJ. See if I've still got enough room to get the fan on and bolt it up. Looks like I do. Now in the ZJ Grand Cherokee, the fan would have been more like this because it had just one single large mechanical fan and no auxiliary electric fan like was present on the XJ that I've got. I think I'll put them in with just a very small amount of blue Loctite, not a lot. Just enough that might bite in a little bit. So the Loctite gives us just a small amount of lubrication going in there in addition to hopefully securing the screw. The other thing I've heard with this clutch is that it's apparently a lot noisier because of all the extra air that's being beat around under there. We are into aluminum here, so there's only so much torque these can take, and that probably explains why they have such a coarse thread as well. Take this back out to the car, go ahead and install it. All right, fan goes back in and over the pulley. Wow, that is a tight fit. If you had a 3-row radiator, this wouldn't work at all. There we go. Yeah, it was tight fit getting that in there. Oh, it's me fidgety to thread this on. There we go. Landed right on top of a hose down there. What are the odds of that? Well, I guess if we're turning the pulley against the tension of the belt, that's about as tight as these are going to go. Okay, well, is what it is. There's just no way to slide this down now past that. I mean, not even a little bit. Even if I cut the entire bottom lip off, I'm not sure it would go. I am going to have to turn it into a 2-piece shroud that reconnects from the bottom somehow. To split the fan shroud, multiple options are possible, including just drilling zip tie holes around 2 cut lines and then making those cuts. However, around here nothing gets done unless it gets way overdone, so we picked up a brass picture frame hinge at our local hardware store and broke out the trusty Harbor Freight riveting tool. The plastic used for this shroud is dense enough that aluminum rivets can be secured into it with a little careful thought. The important thing is to come up with your solution and at least drill the necessary holes and test fit the hardware before making any cuts. if you can actually install the hardware and work out a cut afterward, that's even better. Then make reasonably thin cuts. Working the solution in this order ensures that when the final assembly opens and closes, everything lines up neatly. Okay, with this new fan clutch installed, the problem of getting this down past the clutch has gone from difficult to impossible. So there's not enough material I can possibly cut off of here, short of just removing the whole thing, that would actually allow this to slide back down through there. So let's do that. Now that you've seen me how I modified this, so I'm just going to remove this one thumb screw I've put in right here, open it up, and drop it through. Now in doing that, I want to be careful because these two corners up here do not have a lot of material, and they tend to be brittle even when they're brand new, and they get worse after they've gone through a few heat cycles. And I'm not going to clear the hoses, so it's going to be kind of hilarious if the fix doesn't fit around the hoses I ever put down here. Oh no, I think we should be able to do it. Yeah, there we go. Trick, like always, is just be gentle. I don't want to over tighten this because it will just pull the rev nut right out of the plastic, even though I've kind of melted it in there. And now just pull my zip tie through. And it chose a nice bright red one because I had it hanging around. Someone comes down here trying to figure out how they're going to take this apart. Hopefully that'll be a little visual clue that there's something they need to do. Okay, so hopefully the little belt and suspender system there will keep that together and it won't flop around at all. I mean, it feels just about as rigid as the original. Okay, if all is going well, this should be our final step. Last check. Is the fan clearing the shroud in all places, including our little hardware additions down there? Oh yeah, we got plenty of space. Well, we've already started this once with the fan shroud off to make sure that everything was balanced, that it wasn't on crooked or whatever. We've now got the fan shroud back on. Start it one more time, just make sure it's pulling air through correctly, and we are done. Okay, even with the engine loaded up there, which is when you saw it rocking really hard, I shifted into gear, held the brake, and then just pushed on the engine to make sure the torque converter was pushing things around as hard as it could. I didn't hear anything crashing. I didn't hear the fan hitting the guard. I did not hear the fan clutch running into the radiator. So even though the clearances are a lot tighter, there's still some space down there. I can see it. I wouldn't expect it to hit anything. I'd already tested it a couple different ways, a couple different times. So that is how you add a transmission aux cooler and then put a ZJ fan clutch in to move a little more air. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us again today. Hopefully you got some ideas on upgrades that you could possibly do on your vehicle. Of course, we use the aftermarket transmission cooler, but like we showed in the video, the Dorman OE style is still available if you want to try and make everything as plug and play as possible. In any case, you've got a vehicle out front that could maybe use some upgrades, so get out there and do them. Have fun doing it, and make that vehicle a little bit more the way you want it to be. Thanks for joining us again today, and we'll see you again next time, whenever that is. Has anyone seen my phone?